What's going on, everyone? XO603 here. So we're in the garage. I did a video the other day at the park, but I really don't like how that came out, so I figure it's just easier to tell you here. Plus it's cool we got the other bikes here, so I can kind of break it down to you. We also have the box here that we received from Lamborghini and Ducati with the number 63 that came with the bike. The only thing we're waiting for though is the helmet and jacket, which is matching with the bike, so hopefully that'll be in any time, I'm guessing, assuming, because tariffs and all that other stuff going on. Yeah, but you know, one of the things though that I've seen with this bike that's now made its appearance out there is a lot of you aren't asking the question why. Only one person did ask the question why on a comment on a video. And you know, the thing is that, you know, realize I've been out of the Ducati game now. I sold my Ducati last year. I think it sold in summer or something like that. So I actually didn't even have the bike here. You know, the bike was being sold somewhere else. But so I've been out of the Ducati game for a minute. And the thing is that I said, if I'm going to go back into Ducati, it has to be worth it. One of the things is, so I had a V4S and I also had a 1299 FE, limited number 172. I said, if I'm going to go back into Ducati, I want it to be something that is worth it, that I like, that I want, you know. And realistically speaking, when I first saw the redesign of this bike in 2024, I was definitely hesitant. You know, and the thing is that I guess it has to do with the winglets and I can't even say the carbon, but the carbon does make this bike. But you know, it looked a little, you know, a little taken back for me. It was. But then I noticed something when I was at the dealership. I noticed when you look up underneath here, you have an air duct like the MotoGP bike. And I was really like shocked by that. I was like, oh my goodness. So basically it's like you're riding a MotoGP bike. That's insane. That's crazy. Versus the older models that had it different with the air duct and everything. Now, of course, those models did have heat stroking problems. You know, I ran into some of it where the bike was shut off and I restarted, but never like a full-fledged problem, you know, as long as you keep moving. But especially in the Texas heat. But yeah, so when I saw the first, the V4, they got it, and I couldn't demo drive it or ride it, but I saw it. But then what changed my perspective is then I saw they dropped this bike. And actually I think I went in on this bike before I even saw it, because I knew it was a collab with Lamborghini and Ducati, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go in on that. And I think allocation somewhere else was out, and I said, you know, I really want this bike. And I said, you know, if I'm going to go back into Ducati, it has to be something special. And when I saw this bike, and I said, boy, it's carbon, gloss carbon. It's Ducati's first gloss carbon bike. Literally, I almost had a heart attack because, as you know, I've had two M1Ks. I got those two M1Ks. The first one had forged wheels, and I wanted carbon wheels, so then I sold that one to somebody, and I got another one with carbon wheels. I only put 17.6 miles on it, never rode the darn thing. But the thing was, though, they were not limited production. This is limited production, which I was so happy about. But then when I started looking at it again, pictures and everything, then I realized all this is gloss carbon. It's not just this, like on the H2. It's not just the top cowling here. It's everything on the side, everything. The only thing that's not gloss carbon is the tank here and the frame. And I said, boy, this is a no-brainer. I have to get this bike. And that's when I put in my allocation. Now, of course, there was doubts. You know, I doubted getting it. And, you know, the thing is that, you know, I was really doubting getting it because Ducati has had a history with locking you in. But that's all premium brands. Usually they lock you in for 6 months, so you can't make money off the bike. But then when I went to see it and pick it up, he told me that wasn't a factor. And right now in today's world, you always want to have flexibility, especially with your finances, to do anything you can. Like I said, all these bikes are investments. They could be gone tomorrow. You know, would it kill me? No, it wouldn't. I wasn't born with them. It's not like I'm, you know, I can't live without you. No. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's very important to have access to your money if need be. And so I said, boy, I'm not locked into it. Now, granted, this bike, I would not let go. I would let these go before I let this go. But the thing is, at the end of the day, this bike truly won me over because after I saw the base out in Texas and I saw the redesign of the winglets here and I saw all this gloss carbon, I said, this is the bike to have. This is Ducati's first gloss carbon bike. you can't lose out on it. You can't miss out on it. The only thing that you're going to lose out on is that you can't get another one. So realistically speaking, am I proud and happy I got this bike? Yes, I am. Now, besides all the gloss carbon fact, the thing is, what also makes this bike is truly a phenomenal street bike. It is, look at the coloring, the design. Like I said, forget the gloss carbon, but it's such a unique bike to ride. The redesign of the tank, it's like we're going back to 1199 1299s, which I actually love. The 1299 tank and 1199 tanks, they it makes you feel like you're riding on a 600. This bike around the corners, and also to remember the performance of having the double-sided swing arm now. It's a lot. It's a lot to come back to Ducati and be like, wow, y'all really stepped up the game there. Now, I tell you, when I took this bike out, I'm like, wow, I'm loving it. It's really an amazing ride. Really the only pet peeve I have is that I can't get enough of it. I really want to ride it, but I said, I will limit myself with this bike because it is a collector's bike. Now, again, another thing is that when I bought my older V4S and my 1299 FE, I really wanted a SP2, and I couldn't find one for a great price, and I said, you know what, just forget it. I'll get it on the next round. And that was another option that I was hoping and waiting, but when I saw this Lamborghini Ducati bike drop, it spoke more to me than that. Another thing is that, this Ducati has the dry clutch, which is beautiful. And realistically speaking, I am very blown away with the performance of this bike, because this bike is not, so I've done a demo drive on the V4, and I did have the option of V4S, but I didn't need that. But, the V4 it comes nowhere close to this bike. This bike, when you're buying it, this bike is already, like, I can say it's definitely tuned. The Acro exhaust is definitely it's not like buying R1M. I'll tell you, this bike will rip. It's like it's already tuned and everything. It's perfect. Now, is it perfect to my liking? No, which I'm looking into getting the Uptail Acro Pro exhaust on this bike, which I do kind of have a little hissy with because it does take away the gloss carbon from the exhaust there, and that does kind of seem to flow. I haven't really fully decided if I'm going to do that, but I think I want to. It'll make the bike sound a lot more aggressive. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't sound right, but that's what happens. Any bike you take, the regulations we have, the emissions, all that other stuff. Yeah, that's what we're in today's world with. But yeah, you look at this bike, and like I said, when I saw this bike, I said, I have to have it. It just looks so menacing. And look at those headlights. And, or daytime running headlights. Let me kind of turn off the lights here. Hopefully it comes in on camera. It is, it's not really, there we go. It's coming a little better. It's just so sharp and crisp. And I tell you one thing, actually, with this bike, I love this bike, and I realized this after I bought it. They went back to the headlights that were on similarly to the 1199 Superleggera, and I loved those headlights. And then they changed them for the 1299 Superleg, and I was like, But the 1199 Superleg, if y'all don't know, look it up. It's a beautiful bike. It's like an orangey red, but the headlights are so unique and so beautiful, and they brought those headlights in with this bike, and they're just so beautiful. They really are truly beautiful. So like I said, we can talk about the gloss carbon. Great starter point, great selling point, always hold value. But like I said, the ultimate performance of this bike, the go around corners, the acceleration, everything, and I can only imagine once we do the Uptail exhaust, if we do that, it's going to just shine over any other bike. And like I said, the R1M is such a beautiful bike. I think people, who get the R1s, they're beautiful for riding, everything. Great price point. Way better performance in cornering if you are a track person or do like cornering. I would prefer this over any other 1000cc bike. But when you come to Ducati, it's just on the next level. Now, also too, I wish I did keep that other M1K to compare, but I will say the M1K does not compare to this bike, even around the track, because M1K is just such a taller bike. The gas tank is very big. You know, you are up higher, so it does make it a little difficult. You know, I'll say this. Chances are, I would imagine, would walk the M1K around the track any day of the week. And that's just my personal opinion. Even once you do work, I'll say this will definitely beat out the M1K. You know, and don't get me wrong, the M1K is such a beautiful bike, but at the end of the day, you know, Ducati has always shined in racing. So, yeah. But, you know, so realistically speaking, performance-wise, this bike, like I said, it's like this bike. You're looking at it, and there's so much more to this bike than just, you know, the green, all the gloss carbon. You know, it is an animal. You know, 300 wheel animal, and that should be enough said. And same thing with this bike. This bike is a animal too. You know, it's much more than just the moto composite carbon fiber. There's so much more on this bike power wise, and same thing with Ducati. When you buy this bike, you know, and like I said, it's an investment. I know because it has the Lamborghini Ducati name, it will never realistically drop all that much in value. If it does, it'll only rise in value. Because we've only got 630 of these in the world. And like I think I commented on a post, somebody's post, you know, a lot of people are saying that's so much, that's so many, like, in circulation. Really, that's not. Because as our world grows in our population, also grows our millionaire status, and also to our billionaire status. So, you know, Ducati is only reaching demand, but keeping the same amount of units, if that makes sense, you know, in perspective. So, you know, the amount of millionaires back in the 80s, totally different than now, you know. So they could only produce maybe 173 bikes, you know, versus now we're getting 500 of, you know, units, you know. So again, like I said, when it comes to this bike, it is more limited than the Tricolore. It's not more limited than the Italia, but also to realize the Italia and this bike also have the same motor. And it's crazy though, because that bike came with the uptail exhaust. So realistically speaking, if you were to put the uptail exhaust on this and put carbon wheels on it and put the brakes that are on the Italia, this bike would be over $120,000 bike at the end of the day. So realistically, what bike are you preferring? Yeah, the Lambo Ducati. Now, also with all that being said, you know, I am not a track rider, and for good reason. You know, a person who's willing to go 200 miles per hour, I just don't trust myself on the track, because I'm going to lean into those turns, and I'm just going to probably find myself in a situation I don't want to be in. So, realistically, I just love having this piece of art in the garage, being able to come out, look at it, and really take in all the design of the bike, everything, all the unique, you know, just the styling, you know, and also to the taking the actual performance, you know, although that's not coming through on camera, but when I ride it, you know, I can take that in. Also too, so we're gonna go through the box here real quick. Of stuff. Hold on, I'll set the camera down. Where's the thing at? So when you buy a Ducati, it comes with a box with everything. So here is our certificate of authenticity and everything for the Lamborghini Ducati V4. And then as we open this up here, we're gonna, so in this bag here is the actual cover for the Lamborghini, which is actually kind of cool. I haven't opened it up, but I don't need to. But you know, if you've seen it online, it comes with the lime green, the Lamborghini, you know, all the stuff. So that's actually a really cool cover, which at some point in time I will put it on. It comes with the clear windshield. I'm not going to get everything out, but right now the tinted windshield is on here. This is the clear one, which is cool. This was the Rizomo, I believe, gas cap, or it could have been the covers, the mirror covers, because that one I did have the mirrors off. I think it's criminal to have the mirrors on there. Here are the actual mirrors in here. Actually, that's a bag from something. I don't know what was in that. Yeah, so y'all can see here are the actual mirrors. which they changed the design. As you can see, the nice LEDs and everything in there. The mirrors are fitted inside here now. They used to be on the out right here, so it's a lot cleaner of a finish. And then we also get the block off plates here for the mirrors with the little Ducati emblem on it, so that's really cool. And then going back through the box here, there's a little other tidbit stuff. So here is the regular seat. I think this is more so the sport seat. Yeah, it's all black. It's kind of like a what is that, velvet or something? I don't know, leather. But this is versus the lime green tapestry, I can't say, seat that's on it. And then we also have in here, oh, this is the other stuff. So this stuff, so here we have the actual clutch cover that came on top of the dry clutch for shipping, because when you ship this bike, last thing you want to have is the dry clutch arrive damaged. So yeah, they install the stuff on the bike when they're doing their what would it be called? PDI? At least that's what it was called when I worked at the dealership. And then I think these are the... Okay, so this was the gas cap box. And I think the other ones might have been the bar ends or something. So that is what comes in your traditional Lamborghini V4 Panigale box. So that is the nice little prize box. And like I said, we're still waiting on the helmet and the jacket. So that is another thing to come. And like I said, we got the authenticity. And it's really cool too, because you go to Ducati's app and you register that you're the owner of this, which I had with my V4S and the 1299 FE. So, you know, and you can also join Ducati Riders Club, which is your local Ducati dealership. Which is really cool. You know, and the thing is though, like I said, you know, at the end of the day, what's different about this bike and all the other bikes, yes, the R1M is limited. Yes, it is. It's plated, everything. It's a nice daily bike. It really is. I'm not gonna lie. I love this bike. But at the end of the day, when you're at my age of maturity, you know, these bikes are fun toys, you know, but at the end of the day, there's just something about having that nice thing in the garage. As I've told you all, I am not, like, I'm a car guy, but I just don't see why locking up $300,000 into a Lamborghini Huracan or a Revel Alto or the new Lamborghini is worth it at this point in time in my life. I just love bikes. Some people in their DNA, they just have it with bikes. You know, some people have it with cars. I have it with both, but more so with bikes. You know, granted, the Blaster. I love quads. I love dirt bikes. I grew up around it. So, yeah. So at the end of the day, is there any Ducati to top this one? Well, the only Ducati to top this one is, well, what you think. Yes. And so, you know, I think IMK did a video on it, and, you know, that's going to be the Ducati to actually see and how it compares coming up, which I'm really anxious to see for myself. You know, but at the end of the day, like I said, with everything that's out right now, I think Ducati has literally killed the game with this bike. It kills every other, you know, bike out there, even the H2. Now, for different reasons, of course, you know, because if we were talking about speed, we're going with this. If we're talking in a straight line, that is. If we're talking about acceleration, we're going with this. Or appeal, like futuristic appeal design, you know, we're going with this. But if we're talking about classiness, you know, just for the sake of having Lamborghini on it and everything and knowing it won't lose value, then we're going with this, you know. At the end of the day, you know, like I said, the R1M is limited, but, you know, of course, as you put miles on it, that will definitely depreciate. It's a Yamaha. But when we come back to this, this is the most safe investment when it comes to motorcycles, because it is a collaboration between Lamborghini and Ducati. And like I said, putting the gloss carbon aside, the performance of this bike is out of this world. You know, and it does not compare to your normal V4. It does not compare to your normal V4S. If you're ever able to get behind the handlebars of this bike, you will see it is a phenomenal bike. But with all that being said, I hope and pray that gave you a insight into this bike and why I chose to get it. And remember, the world is evil enough. No need to be hateful, spiteful, jealous, none of that stuff. Just be positive and loving. And there we have the Lamborghini, the Ducati V4 Panigale. So yes, so y'all, peace, love, ride safe, and have a good day and night wherever you are. Later.